The reason I got inspired to this story was that I've in fact visited this place in the real world before. Actually, I've flown all the way from Dar es Salaam to Zanzibar already, although that was on a Cessna 280 Grand Caravan, and I was a passenger, obviously. Now, back then I decided, being the app geek that I am, that I might want to try that flight in the simulator. So I did, and on approach to Zanzibar, which you'll see in just a moment, I realized that there were several sandbars that were located in the Bay Area just before you reach Zanzibar Airport. So, I was interested in actually seeing if you could land on any of those sandbars. And what better airplane to try that out in than the Piper J3 Cub. So, I tested if I could land the J3 Cub on some of those sandbars, and that inspired me to writing the short story Tundra, which you'll find on my blog. In case you're interested, there's going to be a link in the description below, or you could just Google flying kayak, check the link on my YouTube channel page, or enter flyingkayak.jimdo3.com. I'll put a link up in the info box too, for you to watch and check out my blog. So, to give you some more background information about Dar es Salaam, according to Wikipedia, Dar es Salaam is one of the fastest growing cities in the world. It's located on the coast of Tanzania, and it is the most populous city, as I already mentioned, and it's an important port and economic center of Tanzania. It is the former capital. However, it's been replaced by Dodoma, the new capital of Tanzania. The island chain that we're headed to is the main island of the Zanzibar archipelago. The Zanzibar archipelago is, in fact, a semi-autonomous part of Tanzania. It's 25 to 50 kilometers away from the coastal mainland, according to Wikipedia, and it consists of two large islands, not the three I mentioned earlier, and several smaller islands. The main island, known as Unguja, which is actually referred to informally as Zanzibar, is the island that we're currently flying towards, and is a secondary island, known as Pemba Island, which is smaller and located off to the north. In fact, both islands do have airports, and I might just record a flight from Zanzibar to Pemba in the future, if you're interested in that. Now, just in case you're wondering, the big pole right up front that is smack in the middle of the windshield is in fact our fuel gauge. To the bottom of the pole there's a small cork, and this small cork is swimming inside the fuel tank. Now, the higher the fuel level is, the higher the small cork at the bottom of that push rod is in the fuel tank, so the push rod is the highest out of the fuel tank. The lower that fuel level is, the lower the cork goes, which means that the push rod will sink also. Now, if we were to get this cub inverted, and all the fuel would flop around in the tank, we'd actually see that the fuel gauge would go all the way up too. Now, this is of course not exactly the most accurate way of determining how much fluid is got left, but it actually works. Now, if you look below us right now, you'll see that we've left the coast of Tanzania and are heading towards Zanzibar, which we'll start seeing in just a moment. The water we're overflying here is the Indian Ocean, and there have been some additional textures added with the help of Rex Textures Direct, an add-on that I'm going to add down in the description. Now I just quickly want to draw your attention to the sounds that this add-on for FSX provides. Now in a normal FSX default airplane, you would just hear the engine and a bit of a rushing of wind. In this airplane, you'll actually hear a difference between the window being open, half, and the window being open fully, or the window being completely closed. In fact, you can actually open the door in flight on a Piper Cub, and you'll hear a big difference. Now in the real world, closing the door in flight is actually pretty difficult, but the good thing is that it's fairly easy in the simulator. The Piper Cub is actually equipped with a single 4-cylinder 65 horsepower engine. That's not a lot of horsepower for an airplane of any size, and with 2 people on board and maybe a bit of baggage and full fuel, you'll really feel the penalty when it comes to climb rate, takeoff distance, and airspeed. However, currently there's only one pilot on board, so the airplane is fairly light, which means that we're not only climbing fairly well, but we're also cruising at a fairly acceptable speed. If you look at the horizon, you can just see the Zanzibar main island coming up. Now we're still about 28 nautical miles, or an approximate 50 kilometers away from Zanzibar International Airport. And that puts us a few kilometers away from the tiny sandbars on which we want to attempt a landing. In this airplane, you're really going to have to use a lot of rudder together with the aileron in order to counteract adverse yaw moments. This is because this airplane doesn't have the modern ailerons that we're used to. Those ailerons are just directly connected to our aircraft controls with wires, meaning that there's no differential or anything that will lead to countering of adverse yaw by the ailerons themselves. You're going to have to use a bit of rudder together with the ailerons in order to create well-coordinated turns. This is actually a real challenge, and something that you'll definitely learn from flying A2A's Piper Cub. In fact, in general, I found this add-on to be an incredible learning experience. You get a much more hands-on feeling, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to improve your skills, regardless of whether you're used to flying PMDG airliners or other general aviation add-ons. So as you can see, we're currently arriving at one of the sandbars. In fact, just one of these sandbars is the one that the pilot in Tundra decides to land on. Now, the Piper J3 Cub is the perfect airplane for off-road landings, especially when she's equipped with Tundra tires. She's an incredibly well-suited airplane for bush operations. And that's the reason why she is still used as a great bush plane, especially in Alaska and the United States. Now, This airplane's specialty is landing when there's not exactly a lot of landing space available, so short landings and short takeoffs. This is facilitated by the large box-like wing, which creates a lot of lift, especially at low speeds, and the fact that this is a very, very light airplane. She's built up entirely out of wood and fabric, which makes her a fairly lightweight airplane. What we're going to do is we're going to set up a pattern, just as we would at a normal airfield, for the off-airfield landing. The wind is currently coming almost directly from the south, which means that we can turn so that we're aligned parallel to the tiny sandbar, and then fly straight onto it, and do a pretty normal landing. This is one of the larger sandbars in the bay. There are much shorter ones. For today, this is a sandbar that we're going to try. Now, in an off-airfield landing just like this one, usually what the pilot will do is he'd do several approaches, checking out if the field is suitable, and if he can safely land and approach the place without risking crash. We can ascertain from the air, pretty much, that this landing zone is very suitable. And I've already landed on those sandbars, so I know that there's not going to be a lot of stuff there. All I have to do now is keep my altitude nice and low, currently at about 1,100 feet, and fly a normal landing pattern. Then we'll touch down, attempt to turn around, taxi back to the beginning of the sandbar, and then we're going to land it, just as we'd land on a normal asphalt runway. Tundra tires are especially suited to off-airport operations for several reasons. First off, they increase the drag on landing, which will obviously allow you to, well, land shorter, which is of a definitive advantage in any situation, and especially in an off-airport landing situation. The next thing that they're going to do is that these tires are actually very soft due to the low air pressure inside them and the soft rubber that they're made on, which means that they'll kind of hug the ground, which creates a very much smoother landing experience than if you do this on normal tires, and you can actually land on sticks or stones without necessarily being bumped around, which makes this fairly safe. Now, the landing area that we're heading for here is obviously a very, very short one. So we're going to touch down right at the start and maximize the amount of roll we can use, and also what we want to make sure is that, well, after landing, we can start braking as soon as possible. The Piper Cub isn't equipped with any flaps, because it doesn't really need any. This airplane can fly at very low speeds. In fact, it can fly at speeds as low as 35 miles per hour, which is almost in the high 20s in terms of knots, which is an incredibly low stall speed for any airplane. Alright. Currently, I'm just turning downwind and checking that my landing is all really good. This isn't even incredibly unrealistic. In fact, you'll find a lot of videos online of people who landed these very airplanes all the way on sandbars, most of those in Alaska. I'm pretty sure nobody's exactly landed one of these airplanes on an African sandbar quite yet. Alright. Just gonna descend here, while still keeping some of my power in. Once you take the power out, you're really gonna lose a lot of altitude fairly quickly. And, well, we want to avoid shock cooling the engine, because the increased airflow, once we take out the power and start diving, will most definitely cool the engine pretty severely, and that might lead to some cooling issues. If the engine gets too cold and we apply full power, for example for a go-around, we might actually experience an engine failure. And an engine failure in the middle of the Indian Ocean, in a single-engine airplane, I'm not exactly sure if that's what you want to do. So I've just quickly put down the window here. Not to create annoying sound, but to hear the airflow a bit better, so that I can judge my airspeed without looking at my instruments. That is actually pretty important. In the real world, pilots would often fly airplanes just like this one, with the window or the door open, for just that reason. It kind of makes it more easy to judge without looking at the instruments. And you don't really have a lot of instruments on this airplane anyway, while at the same time, if you can judge your airspeed without looking at the instruments, you can concentrate on what is happening outside. Oh boy. And we've touched down. Now the airplane continues to roll fairly far, even while it's on its main wheels. And now the tail wheels touch down. Take the stick all the way back, and wait for it to stop. Wow, that was much shorter than I expected. We actually made the landing in just a few meters. Next thing I'm gonna do is take off again. Now we've still got enough distance remaining, so we actually won't have to turn around. Just gonna fly full power, give it a bit of nose down stick so the tail wheel comes up and we can see where we're going. And I'm gonna ride along until I hit about 50 miles per hour, and I'll ease her off the ground. I'm staying pretty close to the ground at the moment because ground effect, which means that the air gets squashed between the wing and the ground, creates a bit more lift and allows me to speed up a little faster so that I won't use up as much runway and I can climb away a bit safer. Now that was a fairly short landing, and it worked pretty well. In fact, it worked much better than I expected. The next thing I might try is fly over to Zanzibar International Airport, and once I'm over there, I could actually see if I'm going to pass another sandbar on the way. That's maybe a bit shorter, and we'll see if we can make a landing there too. So stay tuned to find out the next sandbar we're going to land on. Straight ahead, you can see another sandbar that's going to be much more challenging to land on. In fact, it's a lot shorter and a lot thinner than the sandbar that we previously landed on. Now, one of the cool things about the Piper Cub is that you can actually fly her pretty low and pretty slow. So we're going to see if we can manage this landing just as we did the other landing before the sun comes down. Once the sun is set, we're going to return to the airport, Zanzibar Airport, which is just off to our right. You can actually see the poppy lights and something that looks like the runway end identifier lights in the right cockpit window here. So we're not far away from the airport. In fact, this sandbar is directly in the approach area of the airport. I'm pretty sure in the real world you wouldn't legally be allowed to land on a sandbar in the approach area of an airport. But, well, this isn't the real world, so let's have some fun. As the wind is coming almost from the south, we're gonna just fly around here and land the airplane in the wind direction. This is probably more important on this landing than it was on the last one, as this time we're actually flying to a shorter sandbar. Now it's going to take us a while to get there because, as I said, the Piper Cub is a really slow airplane. We're currently flying at a ground speed of about 70 knots, and we've got an easy 5 to 10 knot tailwind. So we're in downwind for our crazy sandbar landing. You can now really see the airport of Zanzibar. Oh look, Plan G has decided to create a VNAV profile for landing on sandbar. Alright, so this one, although it doesn't look a lot shorter, it is a lot shorter. I checked it on the map. This sandbar is a lot shorter than what we first landed on. So we're really gonna have to take care that we get down right at the beginning of the sandbar this time. Just descending. Adding a little power in the turn. It's actually pretty difficult to judge your altitude when you're flying above the ocean, which is making this a bit harder, because I want to be just low enough to land at the very beginning of the sandbar, but obviously I don't want to be too low, otherwise I'm going to touch down in the ocean, which is a problem, as I've heard that water is not one of the best runway surfaces, and we don't want to be too high, or we're going to end up floating all the way along. Currently it looks as if we're a bit too high, but I'm not too sure on that. Yeah, we're probably too high. So, turning down on the power and letting the airplane descend a bit. Alright. Crossing the threshold of our sandbar runway. I'm just rounding out a bit here. Ooh, that was a bit harder than intended. And there the nose is going down. Going back and actually tapping the brakes just a bit. Don't just stop fairly early. Alright. Once again, the Piper Cub managed the landing with ease. Even this second, a lot shorter sandbar was easily capable of sustaining the landing. And now let's see if we can take off. I'm going to try it along the length of the sandbar again. Just going to add in full power. A bit of a stick up nudge. And let her speed up. About 50 miles per hour. Right. And we're off the ground. Well, it's a lot easier than expected. Alright. So while we're still in ground effect, accelerate a bit, climb out, and turn towards the airport before it really gets dark. As we don't really have a lot of instruments, this airplane probably isn't the best airplane to be flying around in at night. Although this might seem that it's really easy to land an airplane on, so this sort of a sandbar, it actually isn't as easy as the Piper Cub makes it seem. Just gonna pop open the window here for a bit of ventilation. And a bit more sound. Now we really did get pretty slow. We're currently at an airspeed of 39 knots. Some airplanes would actually be leaving the runway at this airspeed instead of approaching it. But as I said, it really is a really slow airplane. There was that nose down tendency. It's pretty marked, but we didn't strike the propeller, because I guarantee you, on the A2A rendition, if you strike the propeller, you'll know. thanks a lot for joining me on this short little hop from Dar es Salaam to Zanzibar. I hope that I gave you a bit of interesting background information on the flight, the aircraft, and the airport, and of course on the short story. If you're interested in reading it and haven't done so yet, you can check it out on my blog, which I have linked in the description of this video, and of course on my YouTube channel site. And you can check out my other videos, my Instagram page, and I wish you safe travels, blue skies, and many happy landings. And I'll see you again for the next flight. Thank you for your attention, and have a nice day.